The Oregon Trail is a simulation adventure type of game from the 1980s where you take on the role of a group of settlers in the mid-19th century trying to make their way across the country to Oregon. It was made by history teachers to teach kids how much it would suck to have to actually travel the Oregon Trail. But luckily, this game was really good. See, there's a reason it became a popular name as far as educational games go. Like, lots of people recognize the Oregon Trail, and not so many people recognize Lexia Phonics. What? You start the game by selecting your occupation, which determines the amount of money you start with, and then you buy supplies you'll need for the journey, and once you have everything, you're off. This is the game. These numbers go up, and these numbers go down. And as you keep playing, your wagon randomly breaks and people get lost or sick, but it's up to you to decide how the journey is going to go. You can control how fast you travel as well as how much food you consume, and as your food goes down, you gotta go hunting and get more. Eventually, you visit towns where you can buy more supplies, and then rivers where you have to decide to either ford it, float across, or just pay for a ferry. And it was these decisions of how to handle hazardous situations and manage your stats to try to get the highest end score that made it a good game, regardless of any educational qualities. But it was obviously limited by the time period it came out at. I mean, these graphics are outclassed by the NES, for goodness sake. In addition to that, the game was pretty simple. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think if it was done correctly nowadays, this formula for game design could be something truly spectacular. Yeah, I know Oregon Trail is a thing, but I haven't played that, so I can't talk about it. Regardless, this first game was a true marvel for its time, and it got like $1 million, and it exploded a whole series with spin-offs and like millions and millions of copies. Now, because I was very hopeful that the sequels were even better than the original game, I decided to research it a bit and found Oregon Trail 2, which is actually far from the second game in the series, but it's the second one. Now, because this series bears the cross of being an educational game, the Learning Company decided to continue down that learning path. Rather than put more focus on making a decent game, they focused more on trying to teach the youth how much life sucked back then. And they also demonstrated how much a sequel to a good game can suck. So please allow me to ramble on about why this is the case. So you hit new game and we're greeted with this kind of complex starting screen where you have to set your occupation, your other party members, and a few new things like your type of wagon and various skills that play a part in the random events. I don't have a problem with this. I mean, I've played my fair share of RPGs with overly complex character creation methods, so this isn't too bad in comparison. Furthermore, you got information on the sides that tell you about the occupations and the wagons. All in all, this screen isn't that bad. There's more new stuff, and at this point I'm kind of hopeful that this game expands on the first one and has a lot more cool stuff to experience. However, actually starting the game, we're in a town, and they went for a kind of pseudo first-person mode. I don't know, odd choice, but okay. Leaving this first screen, the game tells us we gotta buy supplies, and the game offers to just give us a set of supplies, or we can buy our own. Now, being the confident Carl that I am, I declined this guy's offer and instead chose to buy my own supplies. That is, until I actually got into the store and found out that this game is needlessly complicated for how little it explains to you. And that's strike number one. It doesn't tell you how to play the game. Oregon Trail 1, there's a nice, friendly store clerk that tells you what each supply does, and he even recommends an amount to buy, and that's a good way to do it. Oregon Trail 2 is just like, here, click this button, you got everything you need. You can debate it a little bit, but I feel that because Oregon Trail is essentially a board game, you kind of need a little guidance to learn how to play it. That I'll be honest, I just restarted and bought the predetermined set of supplies because I don't know what to get. And okay, my second time playing, I kind of had a better idea of how to play. Like, instead of just generic food, you need meat, fruit, and vegetables. Instead of ammo, you need gunpowder, bullets, and a gun. But the point is, it shouldn't take me multiple playthroughs just to learn how to play your dumb game. Now I'll give them the smallest amount of credit that I possibly can. They included this 150-page book, complete with citation and everything, that I guess you're supposed to read in order to figure out how to play, but this is strike number 2, because this completely defeats the purpose of playing a game. See, one of the coolest things about games is that you can teach people through the game itself. People are naturally curious and they have a certain amount of intuition. Like, people want to push buttons, so if you design your game well enough, they can figure it out. If you want people to read this book of information on how to play a video game, then you didn't design your game very well. Okay, I haven't even gotten to the actual game yet. Once I figured out how to buy oxen, it let me leave the town and actually play the game. And this screen is strike number 3, 4, and 5. In Oregon Trail 1, we had this famous simple screen of oxen pulling the wagon. But Oregon Trail 2, we don't even see the wagon. It's just a map with a red line. It's a little graphical thing, but seeing that wagon on the screen, seeing the little cows, the legs moving, you feel the progress better than just a line. Strike number 4, I can't see the very pertinent information, including the amount of food I have. See, when making a simulation game like this, where you have to keep track of lots of stats, you would think they would put more information on the main screen, but nah. Now, to their credit, they tell you when you're running low on food, but that doesn't make sense. It'd be like if you're playing an RTS game like StarCraft or something, you can't see how many minerals you actually have. It's only when you go to build something that it tells you, you require more minerals, and you're like, oh, okay, guess I'll mine more. Wish I would have known that before I wasted my time trying to do the thing. And yeah, I know, you have to open the menu and go into your inventory to see it, but this is ridiculous in a game where this stat updates every few seconds. Next up, strike 5? It stops way too often. There's more landmarks, which I guess teaches students bullshit, but like, every few seconds it stops your progress and tells you, oh, here's a place, and you can't do anything important there. Play for like 2 seconds more and oh, someone got a snake bite. Oh, it's hot weather. Oh, there's a river. There's a hill. The wagon train doesn't like me. The wagon train kicked me out of the leader position. There's diphtheria. There's fog. There's dust from another wagon train. There's a thunderstorm. It just never stops. Although, to be fair, these pointless landmarks were in the first one as well. And there were random events, like the wagon breaking and people getting lost and what have you, but the second one just has far too many. And yeah, the choices in Oregon Trail were part of what made it special, although there were only a few choices to be made, but there's just far too many events in Oregon Trail 2, and none of them are particularly unique or have lasting consequence. About halfway through the journey, I stopped making decisions and just told them to continue. Like, whatever, 2 people died, but I got to Oregon. Hooray. What did I learn? I learned Oregon Trail 2 sucks. And I'm sorry for kids that had to play this boring, overly complicated garbage because it sucks. Even hunting sucks, which brings up strike number 6. The hunting has been ironically simplified to this point-and-click baby garbage, except to simulate the inaccuracy of a 19th century gun, sometimes your gun just doesn't hit. Even if you had it right on the thing. I don't care that it's super far away, like I know my shot was good. The crosshairs were right on the animal. Oregon Trail 1 had a far more complex and interesting hunting system. Even though it looks not as good, just trust me here. You control this little man, and your button shoots the gun, and your bullets don't travel very fast, so a lot of times you have to lead your shot and time it just right and make sure it doesn't hit anything. And it's especially satisfying when you can successfully pull this stuff off. The game's limitations aren't that hard to understand, so at that point, the only thing holding you back is your own skill. We all know, in sequelitis, Castlevania did the same thing. Okay, moving on. So that makes a total of 6 concrete ways that Oregon Trail 2 is bad. Fight me. I hate this game. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but there's so much lost potential. I'm just disappointed. I can see how in multiple playthroughs there could be some kind of enjoyment from this game, but my first time playing was a confusing mess, and the second time was just a total bore to get footage for this video. So kids, what have we learned today? Well, I think we've learned that trying to turn information into a game is incredibly ineffective because it makes it boring and tedious. What is effective is starting with a good game design and working information into it. Primary exhibit number A, Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's a historical open world RPG, kind of like Elder Scrolls, but set in the Czech Republic in 1403. I have learned way more about history from this game than I ever have from Oregon Trail or any game for that matter. And it starts with an absolutely great game design, and history is woven into the game seamlessly because KCD is based on real events, and that's one of the most intriguing things about it. I showed up for the great game, but I stayed for the history lesson. So with this in mind, in order to make a good Oregon Trail, go back to the first game and look more at why that one was good. It's a simple simulation game at its heart, but its unique setting and kind of strategic choices make it special. If you want to teach kids about westward expansion, you can make the game more heavily themed, but don't just make it an interactive textbook. Focus on the game first and foremost, because there's a lot of ways that you can teach kids through a game, but they're not going to learn anything if the game is bad.